All right, what is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the podcast. We are super stoked today because we have a really good guest in the studio with us, Mr. Josh Nowrot. Did I say that right?
Yeah, pretty close. Nowrot.
Nowrot.
Everybody
Nowrot.
pronounces it right. It's okay.
Right,
Just
we got
Josh.
this.
The one and only.
The one and only. And then we got Mr. Ross Young here.
Oh, boy.
How are you, Ross?
Dude, I just got back from vacation, and it was kind of a last-minute thing that you called me, and you're like, hey, we should do a podcast with Josh Nowrot. I'm like, okay. So,
It was last minute for you, but not for us. My bad.
No, it's all good. It's all good. So a little frazzled at the moment because there's a lot of traffic.
There was. It was a mess getting up here.
It was. It's Friday afternoon or
That's true.
Friday morning or whatever in West Michigan, so everybody's heading north.
Right. So let's introduce Josh a little bit. Josh is one of the premier go-to lenders in West Michigan. They've got a really big mortgage center down in Byron Center, one of the most beautiful, I think it is the most beautiful mortgage building in Grand Rapids, in my opinion, because it's that white farmy style. We'll throw a picture up for you people watching on YouTube. If you're not, sorry about your luck. So he's got a really nice building. You've got a team. We're going to dive into that stuff and kind of how Josh created a team. I'm assuming you were probably a solo loan officer before, and now you have a huge team. So let's dive into that a little bit, and so that the viewers can get to know who you are and how they could possibly do this. So why don't you introduce yourself a little bit, and then we'll jump into the questions.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Josh Nowrot. I grew up in Kentwood. I'm one of 7 kids. So we grew up super middle class. And I think that's important because that instilled early on a big work ethic. Like my parents are like, hey, if you want a Nike t-shirt or Abercrombie or whatever, like go mow a lawn, go slang papers. I think one of my first big jobs was bagging groceries at a family fair. And, by the time I was 18, there was a thing at East Kentwood High School called co-op. And that's where you can get high school credit and work and get out of school early. Right. And I'm like, well, oh my gosh, sign me up. You guys remember co-op? Does anybody remember co-op?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we had it too.
Do they still do co-op?
I hope so.
I don't know.
Dude, co-op's legit. If you're in high school, if you're watching this, co-op is awesome. Credit, work, money, it was great. So I go into the co-op office and I'm like, hey, what are the co-op jobs? Like, what can you do? And they're like, well, everybody works for this mortgage company called Avalon Financial. They work 3 hours, they make great money, they get bonuses, and there's like, a 50-room employees of just teenagers calling and hanging up on people. And I'm like, that sounds great. All my other friends are, Subway, McDonald's, working at Family Fare, which is great jobs. But, I think from a young age, I always wanted to work smarter, not harder.
Right.
And I'm like, if I can work for 3 hours and make the same amount of money as people are, 6 and 8 hours, I want to do that. So I started telemarketing for a mortgage company at 16, 17 years old, and that was pretty incredible. And, you're in a room with 50 kids, you're hanging up on people, but there was always like 2 people that got a lot of leads. And the more leads that you got for the loan officers to call and close, the more opportunity for bonus that you had. And so the first couple of weeks, I'm kind of screwing around, get 1 or 2 a shift, 2 or 3 a shift, but there's always these people getting 11 to 15. And I'm young. I'm like, well, if I can, get more leads, get more bonuses, get more money, like that sounds like win, win, win. So I started sitting next to these people, and I noticed from a very early age, like if a client told me no, they're not interested, I clicked the space bar and I was on to the next call. And these people wouldn't take no. They're like, hey, well, tell me why. And they dug in deeper. So rather than, and that was a big life lesson as 16, 17-year-old, like, don't run away when somebody tells you no. If the door closes, jump through the window and ask and keep them on the phone and keep them engaged until they hang up on you.
Right.
So 18, I ran that department. 20 years old, I was looking at the loan officers because they all drove nice cars. They dressed nice. They never really looked like they're working that hard. And once again, smarter, not harder, that looked very appealing to me. And I jumped into the commission end of the mortgage lending business, very young, baby face, no facial hair. I remember some clients like, well, Josh, how long have you been writing loans for? And I remember my response was, man, you wouldn't believe me if I told you. And they didn't, because I was
oh my God, it's awesome.
I was like, well, like 2 months.
Right.
So, I mean, we saw a lot of craziness. I've now been in the business 17, 18 years. I was kind of a solo person for the first 10 years. finally got smart, finally got an assistant. That's a big tip. You know, I had like this weird ego thing where nobody can do it better than me. Nobody can call the client. Nobody can process the loan, collect the W-2s, close the deal as fast as I could, when really I was putting a big lid on my limitations where, yes, you need to have staff. You need to empower, because what I realize, they can all do it way better than I can.
Right.
And if you stay in your lane as an entrepreneur or somebody in real estate or lending, and if your lane is connecting with realtor partners and talking with clients, let somebody else chase the paperwork. You need to do your high level activities.
Stay in your lane. You know, do what only you can do, and do only what you can do best.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that was, I mean, I kicked myself for taking 10 years to figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I would have figured that out, or had, you know, a mentor come alongside me. And I actually did have a mentor. His name was Rick. And he's like, hey, Josh, here's your assistant. She starts on Monday. So it was like a forced thing. And I remember I was freaking out. I had butterflies in my stomach, pit in my stomach. I'm like, well, what's she going to do? I'm going to do everything. And no joke, I did my job and her job for the first couple months till she finally came and ripped the file out of my hand. Her name is Christy. She's still with me today.
Awesome.
And she ripped the file out of my hand, goes, you go get more loans. I'm going to close them.
Right.
And I'm like,
All right.
yes, man. I'm very good at doing what I'm told to do.
Right.
So, I mean, and then from there you build. And it's been a really, really wild run. And, you know, we're excited to be here.
That's awesome.
You know, let's go ahead.
I really kind of want to dive into more of your upbringing and stuff. You said you were one of 7.
Yeah.
What were you, the youngest, oldest, or right in the middle?
Yeah. So I'm second oldest.
Okay.
And I mean, I remember just growing up was chaos.
Now, what was it like in Kentwood?
It was awesome. So we lived in a neighborhood. I mean, we all kind of ran around. It was, you know, we had bicycles, and we went home when the street lights came on, and, you know, pool in the backyard. So there was always, you know, people and friends. And my dad was a pilot for the DeVos and Van Andel family, so he was gone a lot. So my poor mom, us 7 kids, 5 boys,
God.
2 girls at the end. You know, I'm surprised we didn't kill each other.
Right.
It was crazy. But I also learned too, like, hey, if you want stuff, you know, if you want, you know, a shirt or a donut or a soda or something, like, you know, money was not handed out. We did not have allowances as kids.
Right.
It was
Now,
you
when
go
there's
make
7
money
kids.
Right.
and you go figure it out. So
Right.
we, as a family, started delivering papers. Well, what's a great thing about a paper route, and what's a terrible thing about a paper route?
I'm not sure.
You
Never
can
done a
throw
paper
Did you
stuff.
guys have paper routes?
I
No.
live too far out to do a paper
I
route.
was in
No
the
paper
country
route.
too.
No paper route. So the best thing about paper route is you get home after school, you go deliver the papers, and on the weekend, you had to wake up nice and early, and all the papers had to be delivered by 7 a.m.
Oh, so you guys are
So-
hauling butt.
There was not a lot of sleeping in as a kid, and I think that instilled a work ethic
Yeah,
from
you
early on.
definitely learned a work ethic from very early on, and that's awesome. And it definitely shows in your drive today. I would say for sure. You know, being kind of middle class, because I'm guessing your mother raising 7 kids. Your mother was a stay-home.
Yes.
All right. So being middle class and being where you are today, you know, obviously you got in early with co-op and stuff. That's fantastic. Now, what other kind of training have you done to really kind of elevate your game to where you are now?
Yeah, so for me, it was, you know, I was always intrigued by books. So I was like listening to books. I'm a little bit ADD, so Audible really works well for me because I can listen and digest and re-listen and re-listen. You know, if you ever catch, you know, me reading a book, I'm like reading, my mind drifts, reading,
Yep.
mind drifts. Anybody
After
can relate
2
to
sentences.
Oh, yeah.
that? I'm like, oh my God, you know, I'm 10 pages in, I'm like, I don't even know what I just read.
Right.
But, you know, personal development was always very appealing because I learned from a young age, I forget, you know, who said it, but it's like, you will be where you want to be in life based on the people that you hang out with and the books that you read.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, I got to start hanging around different people because I'm not a very good reader.
Yeah,
So,
right.
you know, for me, it was getting around good mentors, getting around good leaders, getting around good people, and trying my very hardest to read and listen to books.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge, like, any successful entrepreneur that I talk to has a similar story to that. And I know dang well I wouldn't be where I'm at without the personal development. There's no way. You just learn so much. You learn, you know, what to say to people and how to say it and how to come off and, like, how to negotiate. Like, you can learn all of that stuff through books. You know, if you feel dumb right now, get your butt reading.
Yeah, or listen on Audible. You get
Right.
a credit a month. It's amazing. I highly recommend it.
Yeah, that's what I do too.
And also, if you're in a position as an entrepreneur, anybody in real estate or lending, get yourself a coach or somebody to hold you accountable.
Mm-hmm.
I remember early on, they're like, are you going to work out harder for just going to the gym and doing your own thing? Or are you going to work out harder if you hire a trainer?
Yeah.
Now, I clearly need to work out harder, but...
Whatever, Josh. You look sexy. You're fine.
There. But it's true. You need somebody to hold you accountable. And I still have a coach, so I'm coached through Core Training, which is a big lender platform. They have a real estate platform too, but there's a lot of great platforms out there. Get some good nuggets, implement, run a business, and hold yourself accountable.
There's a really good common theme that you have been hitting on is, you didn't know what you were doing. And so you found somebody that did.
Yeah.
And that even when you're in a co-op, you sat next to the person that was getting all the leads. Mm-hmm. And then once you get out of that, and then your mentor, Rick, he kind of took you under his wing, and he kind of showed you how to do this.
Yeah.
And now you're at the point where now you have another coach that's going to help you take it to the next level. And there's a common theme that, if you want to get someplace, you like you said, you definitely have to have somebody hold you accountable.
Yeah.
And you definitely have to learn and be around the people that you want the results from and just drive.
Yeah. That's a big part of why we went to EXP, because the people that we were around are all great people, but what we were trying to do was way away. Like, we needed to get around those people so that we could learn directly from them that are already way ahead of where we want to be. So I think that's great.
So what are you reading right now, or what are you listening to?
So my favorite author right now is Tim Grover. Nice. And Tim wrote a book called Relentless.
Yep, I'm reading that right now.
Good, great, unstoppable. And then I'm also listening and reading to his book called Winning, which was just released in May. So awesome. Tim Grover was the athletic and mindset trainer for Michael Jordan, Dwayne Wade, the late Kobe Bryant, and many other superstars. He owns and runs Attack Athletics in Chicago, and literally people fly in private jets to get trained by him. And a lot of it is, workout and physical, but a lot of it is mental. And I feel like in real estate, entrepreneur, sales, anything, you win and you lose first right here before it ever manifests. You talk yourself out of it before. You don't call that person back because you think they already bought the car, sold the house, or, purchased an RV with somebody else. And for me, that's really big, because one of his biggest chapters that he talks about, and he talks about it now in both books, is called Don't Think. And I think that's so important, because we talk ourselves in and out of it. I shouldn't have a team. Oh, I shouldn't have a business. Oh, I shouldn't build a building. I mean, we built our building, shovel in the ground, January 1st, 2020.
Right.
What happened 3 months later?
Yeah. We don't want to talk about it.
Pandemic. I remember sitting at home, which we all were,
right,
watching the TV, and they're like, offices are dead. Nobody's ever going to do that. Nobody's ever going to be face-to-face. Coffee shops, everything, gone, plummet, boom, boom, boom. The news is so negative.
It is.
And we are all in on a client experience center, building office, and that didn't even faze me. Because I remember reading to Tim's book. He calls Don't Think. There's going to be so much noise coming at you that you need to just shut off your brain, attack, and move forward with the plan that you have in action. There's always going to be people that tell you it ain't going to work. All electric cars. Well, Elon Musk, he's doing a pretty good job of that. And now others are jumping on that bandwagon.
Right.
So I think that's really huge, is don't think. If there's something that you want to shoot for, write it down and push forward.
No, that's amazing. And I guess that kind of segues into what I want to talk about real quick is you did build a big building. Why did you build that big building, and how many people do you have on your team now? What does that look like?
Yeah, so we have 14 staff and growing. So our goal for the next couple of years is to attract a couple of really great mortgage producers that fit our culture. We've been approached by a few, wasn't a good fit, so we're looking for that. We also are now expanding in Florida, and we see doing another kind of a copycat of our building in Florida. So laying in bed one night, I had this dream of this client experience center, and I was so tired of all the gross and outdated offices, and like you walk in, and like the younger generation of buyers and even some of the older generation of buyers don't want to walk into the bank, don't want to deal with the mahogany desk attitude. They want to walk in and have this coffee shop, brewery, chill, hangout, leather chairs, environment. And, our building is fully stocked. So whether a client needs a latte in the morning or a glass of champagne, at closing, celebrating, big fire pit, out back, a big, fireplace up front. And then we purposely design the offices smaller so that way people can shut the door, do the work they need to do, but then come out in the community area and engage and interact. So we built a building that is attractive.
Yeah.
Happy hours, client events, client appreciation events. We just want the spot to be, and, that was a big vision that we had.
And that's definitely something that you have done very well at, is building a community within your building. Mm-hmm. Every month you have a realtor event, and then you also have different trainings that you put on throughout the months and stuff like that. And that I feel that is what the future is. Everybody, like you said, everybody thought it was going to be, everybody's going to stay at home, everybody's not going to come in the office, but you're creating an environment where people want to be, and that's awesome.
I think that's so important. There is a shift in where and why people want to work, and going into cubicles and gray paint and, fluorescent lights and ceiling tiles just doesn't get anybody excited. Mm-mm. But coming into a building where music is bumping, the channels are always changing, it just creates a really fun vibe that staff wants to come work at, clients want to come experience. We've had clients that are like, hey, we just bought a house, we're going to redo the kitchen. Let's go look at that and get some ideas. So, we've built a building where people want to come and be a part of. Mm-hmm. And I think what makes us unique is we built a cool office for us, because there's some other cool offices in town, mm-hmm. but it's cool for them. But it's also cool for our clients and our partners, because you guys drive the business. Mm-hmm. We want to make sure we're taking great care of you.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's a cool enough building that I'm willing to drive 45 minutes to come to a training. So
right.
I no joke thought about that as I'm driving this morning, fighting 131 North traffic, going, oh my gosh, these guys have done this like every week for the last 6 weeks. Right. And it really made me appreciate that commitment. 14, mile to 84th Street is a hike. And
yep.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys doing that, because I just drove up here today. We're on 14 Mile in, EXP Wolfpack's headquarters, and I was very blown away. Now I'm going to turn a little bit on you guys, because you guys have built something really, really cool. I followed you. I met with you as an individual agent. You had just quit your job, terrified. You're like, man, I think I'm going to make it. I'm like, right. Kevin, you got the right mindset, to make it. You're ambitious. You don't take no for an answer. You're a hustler. You're always answering your phone, which is, if you're an entrepreneur, what you need to do. But now you've built this Wolfpack and you've got this tribe. And tell me a little bit about that, from transition from where you were to where you are now, real quick.
Yeah. So, we always wanted to build a team. I wanted to build a team from the day I stepped, day I got my license. I wanted to build a team, and it's that community. It's that culture, like we just talked about with your building. And we've been trying to grow that, and we started to go down the traditional team route, and because that's what we knew, that's what the industry teaches. But there's some dynamics with it that I didn't really like. There's a lot of hand holding with the traditional team environment. There's a lot of expectations, like, hey, you're my team leader, you have to do this for me, like stuff like that, and we didn't really like that. So EXP came along, and if people don't know what EXP is, it's the fastest growing real estate brokerage in history.
In America,
it's pretty much
worldwide now.
It's worldwide, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And growing. Countries are getting added all the time. So it's one of the best opportunities for real estate agents to ever come around, because it actually creates an exit strategy, which we've never had before. So it's growing like wild. I think we're at 83,000 real estate agents now. But what it really does is puts the culture on steroids. Yeah. And that's what we've wanted to create. But, it's much like you did with your community center, we want to do the same thing. I want a 30,000 square foot Wolfpack compound where we've got a gym, we've got multiple podcast studios, we've got multiple film studios, we've got conference center. I even thought about doing a lunch buffet downstairs that the public can come into. Yeah. So that they're like, what the hell is this place? Got a big old wolf. It's like, well, this is our compound. This is actually a real estate office.
So good.
What? But it's all about that culture. It's about creating that environment, that cool, like modern space for people to come into. What you're standing in right now, Ross and I have been envisioning this for, 2 years, 3 years?
A couple of years.
Wanting to do something like this so that we could interview people that we like and that We want to get to know your story and let you share your story with the world and be able to, share the real estate agent stories and all this other kind of stuff. So, this is the first Wolfpack podcast studio, and it will be in our memories forever. But we'll have a lot more, I'm sure. But now it's grown. We have 22 real estate agents. We keep growing and adding, and we keep interviewing more and more agents that want to be a part of what we're doing. And the fun part is we're just getting started.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and there's no new ideas. I mean, everything is kind of copied. Like, I got to give a shout out to my buddy Brent Gibson, who was kind of the first in Grand Rapids to create this collaborative space. He still has it. It's called Blueprint Collaborative down off of, I think it's Fulton. And, he created the space with like garage doors and, renting of offices and community space and kind of like almost like a fun Google, like where there's slides and everything, like that.
I love that office.
When you were talking about, the 30,000 square foot center, it's like kind of creating that Google in West Michigan.
Yes.
And just creating that place that's attractive that people want to come into.
Yes.
And get work done, because I tried the whole work at home thing, and if you can do it and you master it, oh my gosh!
If you do, I want to meet you. So send me something, and we want to interview you.
Yes,
because I can't do it.
It's distraction palooza. I need to plug in when I'm in the office, in the zone, and be able to shut it off. I think that was the toughest part of the pandemic. Is for me, working at home is you got to hang out with your family at lunch and go for walks and different things like that. That was really really cool, but I had a hard time shutting it off.
Right.
7, 8, 9 p.m. I'm like working on my laptop. People are responding because everybody's home too. And I'm like, can I be done?
Right.
And I think in business, you need that space. And that's probably one thing I've always struggled with on my career is making sure I'm present at home. And I know that there's a lot of people that probably struggle with this too. You're thinking about the deal that you won, thinking about the deal that you lost. What could I have done better? And I'm getting a lot better at this. But, let me know if you're struggling with this too, because this is something that I'm still working on every day is shutting it off at the end of the day, turn off the light switch and going, hey.
It's hard.
Oof.
It's hard for entrepreneurs. If you love
what you do and you're passionate about what you do, it's hard not to, I never want to take it to like the Elon Musk where I'm, in the office 22 hours a day.
Don't even own a house.
Yeah, don't own a house, crashing on buddies, sleeping in the office for 2 hours.
Richest man in the world and don't own a house.
Right.
But, I think that, there's not a lot of balance if you're an entrepreneur. But I think creating some safe spaces between there is very important.
And I think you do a good job. I mean, you inspire me to want that because I see your stories. I pay attention to you on social media, and you're playing. You work hard. You play hard. And it's like if anybody's not following you on social media, it's like this is a guy that's very, very successful, and you've built an amazing company, and you also play. You're not married to that building. You're not married to owning such a big establishment.
I think it's okay to tell people that you're on vacation. I used to shun from this.
Yeah, right.
I'm always working, always grinding, always working, always grinding. Honestly, we were at a trip earlier this year, and a client called. I said, hey, listen, I'm so sorry. I'm going to try to take the best care of you that I can. I'm going to have one of my team associates reach out to you. I'm traveling right now. And I think people respect that. If you're at the lake, at the cottage, up north, at Lake Michigan Beach, like it's okay to let your clients know that you're taking a minute, you're taking a day. Don't always try to because if they always think you're on, they're going to take advantage of that. Yes. I've even learned to sometimes slow down some of the response. If I get a 10 p.m. text, unless it's 911 urgent, I'm not responding
even
to
if
it.
It's 911 urgent.
So create that space in your life and your business where you let people know that you are playing and that's okay. But that took me a long time to really overcome because I always wanted to appear working, and that's not healthy. And I don't think that's attractive either.
Well, I think it brings up a good point though, that, being an entrepreneur, you feel like you always have to answer the phone. But the people that you just described that where if they can't respect it, do you really want to work with them? To be totally honest with you, because you have to work on your own headspace too, because you have a lot of clients you're working with. If this one client's going to take up all your time and be a stressor to you, you can't deliver the best amount of service to the rest of your clients.
Yeah. And you're not going to lose clients. If people are texting you at 11 p.m., you're not going to lose a client by responding. And I like the new iPhone feature. It's like the silence mode or whatever it is. Like
Do not disturb. That's what mine's on right now. I love it.
My phone reminds me of my bedtime. It's like, go to bed. You got to get up early. And then everything kind of goes silent. So, create that safe space, and it's going to help you grow, because everybody needs a recharge, man. You got to recharge your batteries. Burning out, getting divorced, not taking care of your kids, all of that is really not attractive. And for me, that was important to be present at home, which I still struggle with. I'm working on. I'm getting better.
That was to the wife if she watches this.
Yeah, that's okay.
I love you, honey.
Yeah, and we even open up that communication where I'm like, hey, remind me if I'm not present. I don't know. I can't work on things unless I'm reminded. And I think that's an okay conversation to have too. Like, hey, if I'm ever not doing what I need to be doing at home, gently remind me so I can fix it and get better.
Right. And I think as us as entrepreneurs, we go through seasons, because there might be like during the summer or during the spring, that's a season to push because there's a lot of activity. But during, say, July, like we're in right now, things tend to kind of slow down a little bit. That's the time that you need to kind of recharge with the family and get out and work on yourself. And then all of a sudden people start going back to school, then it's time to push again. Yeah. So I think you have to look at it, if you're an entrepreneur, you got to look at it more as seasons. Yeah. Right. Instead of, there's stuff that you need to do every day. Flat out, there's stuff you need to do every day to keep your business going so you don't have the big dips. But there's always going to be slow times, and there's always going to be faster times, and you need to recognize that in order to know when to push.
Yep. Yeah, take advantage of it.
Yeah.
I love that. The law of the farmer. My coach mentioned that this past week. Like, hey, you don't need to be working 50, 60, 70 hours. Work an impactful 40. Mm-hmm. The grass is not knee-high right now. The grass is kind of right here. Wait for it to get knee-high, and then harvest it. The law of the farmer is very true. You sow seeds, water it, take care of it, let it grow, reap, and go. And for me, that was a very big revelation. I think we all try to push harder and work more hours in seasons where it's not harvest season. There's a time to work 60 hours, but it's not right now. Mm-hmm. And for me, that was a big impact. Like, we need to play when, the industry is playing, and we need to work hard while the industry is working hard. Spring is the time hard to work. Winter is a little bit quieter. You don't need to be working 70 hours a week. That's not a badge of honor. Right. So go with the ebbs and flows of your industry. And, if you work retail, when your busy seasons are, and go play when there's times that, that season quiets down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. I love that. And I would re-listen to that. We're going to make that into a short for sure. That's good. As we kind of wrap up towards the end of this podcast, maybe talk a little bit about some advice that you would give, the younger generation that's trying to figure out what they want to do. And maybe they stumble upon this podcast and are like, wow, that sounds like something I might want to look into. Like, what are some advice that they could start doing to start moving that direction?
Yeah, so I would say find a mentor or take somebody out to coffee. Successful people like to be asked questions. It makes them feel very, very important. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, people put successful people, whether it's somebody that owns a restaurant or somebody that owns a hair salon or a store or real estate or a mortgage company, up on this weird pedestal of like, oh, they're untouchable. We're just people. And we've just stumbled a little bit more, failed a little bit more, failed a little bit faster. So ask them out for a cup of coffee and ask some really good questions. I learned early on to write down and ask some really great questions. How did you get started? What were some big pivotal breaking points in your business? What were breakthrough moments? What are your aha light bulb moments? And learn from those early on. So I'd say find a mentor and sit down with somebody for coffee and ask some really great questions. Not, how'd you get into real estate? What's your, favorite, color and stuff like that. But like ask some great questions. Like, hey, what was the time that you felt panicked in your business and how did you get through that? Like, ask really great questions and you can learn from that. So I'd say take somebody out to coffee and, ask some great questions. We've even done some different job shadow days within the building, and that's kind of cool too. You get to, see all aspects. So if you're thinking about real estate, do a real estate ride along. If you think about lending, or if you want to be an engineer or, landscape designer, I think that job shadowing is really, really important.
Yeah, and I think any of us that are successful, you're right. We want to be asked questions because we want to help. It's like we've made it. I was asking questions when I was brand new, and it's like now it's my turn to share. I'm still learning. We're all still learning, and we will continue to learn forever. But, it's like anybody listening to this, if you want a real estate ride along, I'm sure Ross or I will do that anytime. If you want a lender ride along, you got Josh.
Come on in.
So, you got any questions? I think I want to wrap up with where you think the market's going to go? Because that's a big topic that's in people's heads.
Yeah, I think that'd be good.
Okay. So I guess then, where do you think the market's going, Josh?
Yeah. So the biggest thing is the sky's not falling. Turn off the media and quiet down the noise. Now, what we've seen in the last couple of years is not normal. The Federal Reserve, has been buying mortgage-backed securities to the tune of $80 billion a month for the last 2 years. That's the only reason why rates were in the 2s and 3s. Now, that is like paying your bills on a credit card and checking off that bill like it's paid. It's not. That money is owed. That money is due. And we are seeing that with inflation right now. So there is great opportunities for both buyers and sellers in this market. Now, we'll address the seller thing first. We're not going to see property values crash. Right. I lent through the crash. I lent up until the crash. Adjustable rate mortgages, low credit scores, no down payments, no skin in the game. When turbulence hits and you have no equity, no skin in the game, and a low credit score, what do? You kick the keys back to the bank and you go rent. That's what caused the last crash. Everybody's got mad equity, big down payments, and big credit scores. The credit score before the crash average was 608. The current average credit score is 786.
Holy crap.
Big difference of where we, were then and where we were now. And I remember, because I lent then, I remember taking a loan to my boss going, why are we funding this thing? This thing is not very good. And he literally looked me dead in the eyes. And he goes, if we don't fund that loan, the mortgage company right next door will. So, I mean, at that point, I got kind of scared of my career. I'm like, oh my gosh, is this like a thing? Is this sustainable? And it wasn't. And we saw what happened.
All right.
So sellers, if we're seeing any price drops out there right now, we're seeing the greed subside.
Yeah.
And basically what that means is, hey, if I own a ranch and I saw my neighbors sell their ranch for $300 and I think mine's a little bit nicer, I now want to sell mine at $325. And if I push my realtor hard enough, he or she will list it at that price. And what we're seeing now is some of that greed correction calming down. And you guys, feel free to chime in here too.
Oh, yeah.
But that $300,000 house might sell for $297,000, $295,000. We're not seeing prices crash, but we are seeing that greed chill out. And that's good. A double-digit appreciation is not sustainable.
Well, and we are seeing that. I mean, I'm seeing that because I just listed a house in Grand Rapids, and it's a $215,000 ranch. It's not like a super high-end house, but I paid attention to all of the other pendings around, and I called all those real estate agents, and I interviewed them to figure out, okay, what did yours do? What kind of activity did you get? Now, I am having way more activity than they did, but my offers are barely over list. I have multiple offers, but none of them are way over list, not even close, and none of the other pendings were way over list either. So we've definitely seen a shift, but they didn't go down. They're still selling just over at list.
Yeah, and I think there's great opportunity for buyers right now. Slightly higher mortgage interest rates mean less buyers. And that's a great opportunity if you're thinking about buying a home right now, because the second rates pull back and rates drop, we're going to see home values surge again through the roof like we saw in 2020 and 2021 because there's affordability. So it's a lot smarter to buy a $300,000 house now at a slightly higher rate that you can always do a simple refinance on later than to wait for that house to be $400,000
yes,
and the rate to be a point lower because that payment's still going to be higher. So the math checks out that, timing of the market, don't time the market. No. Time in the market is the best thing. And that goes for stocks, real estate, everything. There's no day trading. There's no day trading in real estate and any of that. So time in the market beats timing the market. I mean, let's be honest. The best time to buy a house was 5 years ago, right?
Right.
The second best time to buy a house is today. And we have a lot of really great pre-approved buyers that didn't want to participate in the $100,000 over list, $50,000 appraisal gap. They're like, I'll wait. And those buyers are starting to come back, and they're starting to get some great deals now that the intensity has slowed.
Mm-hmm.
Right? What do you guys think?
I think we're also seeing, the higher price range homes, higher price range for West Michigan, 400,000 and up. Those buyers, obviously, with mortgage rates going higher, they're kind of getting pushed down into the more of the 300s. And so our buyer pool for the higher end is shrinking, but they're all getting kind of pushed down into the, say, like the first-time home buyer range, which is very difficult for the first-time home buyer. I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I'm seeing.
Yeah. Right. Well, and the average home prices are only up about $450 per month. Now, yes, that is a good chunk of change, but, you know, the home values are only up a little bit in terms of that, with the interest rate and the affordability. So, you know, it's like gas at $5 a gallon, then it drops to $4.50 and $4. It's like people settle in, you know, to that new normal. They're either going to wait a little bit longer, get a raise at work, or, you know, work on their budgets a little bit tighter. But we're not going to see an incoming crash or anything crazy.
Right.
Rates, a fun quote that I read is that 25-year average interest rate is 6.75. And as we sit here today, early July, you know, rates are kind of in that mid to high 5 range. So we're still below that 25-year average for interest rates. So it's nothing to get panicked about.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be all right.
Well, and what I like to tell people is, like, yes, it's important to look at home prices. It's important to look at interest rates, but people don't move because of an interest rate. They move because their house is too small or their house is too big. They're empty nesters. Like, that's why people move. So if you need to move, just move. Like, no matter what the market's doing, just move. If the market's tanked and it's really low, guess what? You're going to buy low. If it's really high, you're going to buy high, but it's going to go up. Like, just buy.
Kind of like what he said. It's not time in the market. It's time in the market.
Right.
Time
exactly.
in the market. It's like buying Apple stock. Yes. I mean, we would have all loved to buy Apple stock, you know, 25 years ago when Steve Jobs, or however long, probably longer than that, when Steve Jobs was working out of his garage. So if you would have bought it then, great. But, you know, Apple's not going anywhere.
Right.
And you don't know if that stock is going up, down, or flat tomorrow. So time in the market is really, really valuable. So don't try to time the market. There was a guy yesterday, called in, and he just wanted to argue with somebody. Have you guys ever had this? Somebody just wants to argue with somebody. Yeah. Now, if you bring a sword to a king's table, what can happen sometimes? Right. You could have a sword fight.
Right.
Well, I was in a good mood yesterday. I put my sword away, and I just kind of listened to him. And, you know, he's like, oh, the market's going to crash, all this and that, all rates are right, marketing, economy, and recession and all this stuff. I said, you're right. And he immediately got quiet. He's like, what do you mean? I go, you're right. It doesn't sound like now's the right time to buy for you. Well, what do you mean? Maybe it is the right time for me. I said, it doesn't sound like the right time for you to buy.
Right.
I think you should hang out a little bit. Well, maybe I do want to buy. I don't think it's the right time. Well, I think it is the right time. So I think it's important to, like, on Facebook, on social media, you're not going to change anybody's mind. You've seen the battles.
Right. Oh, yeah.
It's cringy. I exit.
Oh, yeah.
I don't even get in there. I'm like, okay, bye.
Yeah.
And don't try to change anybody's mind.
Right.
Because we have other clients like Josh. We have another baby on the way. We have a 2-bedroom house and a 1-bath, and this ain't going to work. We ready.
Yes.
Work with those clients. Find your clients. Stop trying to change people's minds. Agree with them. Hey, there's a crash coming. Hey, you're probably right. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Let me know when you're ready.
Yeah. Hey,
right.
Now's not the right time for you. From what I'm hearing, from what you're saying, from what I'm hearing, now's not the right time for you. And if you agree, I think that brings great opportunities. Stop trying to sell. Everybody wants to buy. Nobody wants to be sold.
Right. I love it. Oh, is there
That's awesome.
any last things we want to wrap up, or I think that was a good podcast.
I think you've done great.
Yeah.
I think you guys did great. Great job on putting this on, and it's a lot of energy to put this out. And Wolfpack is rocking out there in real estate. You guys are tearing it up. You guys got to call these guys. Buying, selling, Michigan, Wolfpack.
We got you.
EXP.
And we really appreciate the hard work you put in with our clients and stuff. And everybody we send over to you, they have nothing but good things to say about you guys. So we really appreciate that, because we don't send our clients to just anybody.
No.
We have done that in the past, and we've also worked with a lot of not so good lenders, and it makes the whole transaction a nightmare.
Yes.
And it's nice when you get to work with somebody like Josh, who knows his stuff and is able to put in the hard work and get things to make it happen.
Yeah, 100%. We will put your information in the description on wherever this is shared. That way, if people are looking for a loan or looking to refinance, they can get a hold of you.
Yeah. Michigan and Florida, we got you covered.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate you guys watching and listening to this. Until the next podcast, go out there and sell something.
Keep rocking.
Bye, guys.